Hi, this is Dr. Toby, your host on health and wellness. What a pleasure, what a delight to introduce you to my guest, Dr. Nelson Atatua, a public health physician trained in the University of Catanova in Colombia, also went to West Kentucky University for his master's in public health, did a doctorate degree in public health at the Texas A&M, and went abroad to work for the World Health Organization in Barbados. He's done also a doctoral thesis program in Philadelphia and currently teaches in the School of Public Health in Jackson State University in Mississippi, Jackson. We are so privileged to have such a titan in the world of public health with us this week. You don't want to miss it. He's going to share his story of being a cancer survivor, a polio survivor, suffered from a divorce, reconstructing his life and getting back on track, and how he hopes to end his life on this journey. It's an amazing story you don't want to miss. Look forward to seeing you. God bless you. Jesus is Lord. Hi, this is Dr. Toby, your host on Health and Wellness. Thank you. Don't touch that dial. We have a great show with a special guest. His name is Dr. Nelson Artenoha. He's a public health physician, and he's all the way from Colombia. He started his career at the University of Cartagena, got his medical degree, did some postgraduate training in Colombia, moved to the U.S., did a postgraduate in public health in the University of Western Kentucky, went further to Texas A&M, did some further postgraduate training, got his doctorate in public health, now lectures at the Jackson State University in the School of Public Health in the Department of Behavioral Science or Behavioral Health. He is a veteran of several public health institutions like the World Health Organization, and he's been a part and parcel of how we can stamp out the COVID pandemic in our current time. What an honor, what a privilege to invite Dr. Nelson on the show today. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Moma. It's a pleasure being here with you.
We met at a program in Jackson State at the Tougaloo College when we had a resource program to help. I think it was about obesity or about, they were trying to get us to do some research from the MCCTR.
Yes, correct. It's a translational medicine fellowship.
And we were supposed to work together on, I think, pregnant women and how their blood pressure affects.
Correct.
And since then, that has become a big issue.
Correct.
I know Mississippi has lost in the last 3-4 years, about 120-something women simply due to cardiac disease in pregnancy. And Dr. Charlene Collier, who I work with in the hospital university, is at the head of that. And I mean, we're going to definitely get this off the ground.
Yes.
Off the ground. But tell us a little bit about yourself. I wanted to get to know you at an informal basis. Who is Dr. Nelson, and how did your life in Colombia begin? Give us a little background to you as an individual.
Okay, and this is something that I love to tell people, because sometimes they see you like, oh, you're a doctor, and they think that our lives is completely out of trouble. And sometimes it's exactly the opposite. And I was born in Bogota, Colombia. Bogota is the capital city of the country.
Right.
I mean, I make a joke that I'm from Colombia, Mississippi. And then the people, I tell them, well, you hear my accent, you automatically know that I'm from Colombia, Mississippi. My Mississippian last name, Ateortua, right? Ateortua. And so the people will start laughing at that. It's an icebreaker, and also a way to tell them I'm okay if for some reason you are not fully following what I'm saying. Please feel free to interrupt and ask, just to make sure that you are with me on the conversation. So I was born in Colombia. I am a polio survivor.
Wow.
I'm a cancer survivor.
Wow.
And I am now, I will say, a pandemic survivor too. So I spent my childhood going to rehab clinics and hospitals for surgeries and treatments because of polio.
Wow.
So to me, kind of the hospital environment was the like
Was the
home.
vaccine available then when you were
Yes.
born?
Yes, unfortunately, what happened, and I found out this when I was working for the World Health Organization, and I'll tell you this story in a minute, is that the vaccine at that time wasn't properly stored.
Oh.
Vaccines require certain temperature conditions, and there was some sort of mismanagement. It was in the logistics part of the vaccine, not the vaccine itself.
Right.
So it wasn't stored properly, and so the vaccine became inactive. At that time, there was an outbreak of polio in Colombia, and I was one
Wow.
of the kids that suffered polio.
In spite of being vaccinated.
I mean, I got the vaccine, of course,
Wow.
but the
The
vaccine
vaccine
wasn't
was
working
inactive. Wow.
because it was inactive because it
Right.
wasn't kept at the proper
Wow.
temperature.
Wow.
And the reason I found out about that is when I was working for the World Health Organization, we had a seminar on epidemiology in Washington D.C.
Mm.
And one of the professors in the seminar, he saw my limping. I mean, I used to hang around with my walking cane, and he asked me, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Well, I'm a polio survivor. I had polio." So where are you from? I'm from Colombia. Okay, so we started having a conversation,
Wow.
and then he told me, "Oh, this is the first time I ever got to know one of the patients I went to Colombia to know what happened." So he
Mm.
was the one who told me the story about what happened in that outbreak, and I got to
Was that in the
understand.
60s or 50s or
It
70s?
was it was it was in the late 60s.
Wow. Wow.
And then well, I spent my childhood going to hospitals for surgeries, treatments, rehab clinics, all that. So the smell of hospital was a pretty normal thing to me.
Mm.
And then the people started asking me, "What do you want to go? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a doctor."
Mm.
That was, to me, was the most natural
Natural.
thing. So I went to med school. I became a doctor, and yet,
Obviously, you were smart. Give yourself some credit.
and so I started working in medicine. Yes, and I started having my patients and everything. But I also was aware of the importance of doing work in public health, trying to
Mm.
keep the population healthy. And that's what I did in the different positions that I went through my professional career in Colombia. Work public health issues up to when I um, was working as the CEO of a public hospital in a region of Colombia that is in the south, and that was part of, a strategic corridor for sneaking in things and sneaking out things.
Okay.
So that's
I think we
where
understand what you mean.
that's where the drugs are produced. That's where the
Wow.
drugs are manufactured, and that, of course, there's a lot of money there. I mean, illegal money, of course, and there will be many people interested in controlling that area. So fundamentally, there were, left wing guerrillas, right wing paramilitary groups, the Colombian army, uh, just the usual, mafia or delinquency,
Mm.
and so they were all fighting among themselves for the control of the territory.
Wow.
And I was the CEO of the public hospital, the only institution that had the capacity to handle the type of trauma that um, war
Of course.
creates. And so then all of them were coming to the same hospital. So at that time, I had to, try to handle the situation, and we had to, step up our security
Hmm.
measures and everything. But unfortunately, I mean, we were successful in terms of that we didn't have these wounded soldiers or their friends
Right.
killing among themselves inside the hospitals, because the
Right.
majority of our patients were civilians,
Wow.
right? It was the hospital for the poor. So, but then after some time, they started like asking for money, resources, that I will send doctors, nurses to their campsites for helping the other wounded soldiers and so on. And I said no. And they said, "Well, you're the enemy of the revolution," and things like that. And I said, "Well, you you can make me the enemy of whatever you want me to be the enemy, but I'm not gonna do that because this is the hospital for the poor.
This was the 1990s.
It was in the late. It was in the late 90s. Yes.
Wow, wow.
So then it came to a point where I had to go around town with bodyguards. The hospital had to be protected 24/7 by a company of the army and the Colombian army. And so it came to a point where the situation was unbearable. Security and security threats and all that, and they were serious threats. They were not, innocent things, just like somebody making a comment. No, it
Right.
was something serious, and so the decision was to emigrate and come to the U.S. and so reinvent myself.
Let's go back to your childhood. Did you have a prosthetic limb, or did you have just a surgery for the polio? Because a lot of my viewers don't know what polio is.
Oh
They've never
yes,
seen what it
the
is. They
people
have no
don't
idea.
people don't know about polio anymore because we haven't had a case of polio in the Americas since the late 80s. And I mean, polio is officially eradicated in the Americas, in Europe, now in Africa. The last country that had a wild polio case was Nigeria, 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and then it was declared polio free
Certified.
by the
WHO.
World Health Organization last year, and so now officially Africa is polio free. The only two countries in the world where we're having wild polio cases right now are Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. Right.
And so, and it is, kind of evident why, because we're having all these issues over there. And that's one of the reasons why I became a Rotarian, because Rotary International has been the only organization that has been consistently supporting all the polio vaccination efforts. And so, yes, polio is a virus, just like COVID and others. But polio has a particularity, is that polio loves the nervous tissues,
Right.
especially the neurons that take care of bringing the orders down from the brain to the muscles. So the motricity is severely impaired when you have polio. That damage happens at the spine. And then, depending on the level of your damage, it can be one side, both sides, only the lower limbs, both the lower and upper limbs, or you can die because polio kills people.
Right.
I mean, there might be people in the audience that remember that they were children when the massive vaccination clinics and the iron lungs and all the different technologies at that time that were
Well,
used.
President Roosevelt
Yes,
had polio.
and
Right.
to save their lives, because polio kills people. So I will say I was in a way I was blessed just to have my left leg affected. And so yes, then I had to undergo many surgeries.
Wow.
I had to go to the hospitals, and to me the the environment of a surgical room was kind of a very comfortable place for me,
Normal.
because it was normal. I mean, I had being around surgeons, nurses, the smells in hospitals and all that. So then I went through all these surgeries so I could use a prosthesis, a brace, a brace in my left leg, so I will say walk by myself.
Right.
So I am not confined to a wheelchair.
Okay.
I will say, a fairly good level of independence. I know at some point in my life I will have to go to a wheelchair because of all the damages that I have in my back. My back is not straight, it's a coil. So usually when the people see me, I should be like 2-3 inches taller because of all the limitations.
Thanks for letting us know.
the limitations of my bones,
Right.
especially in the back. So yes, it was a process
Wow.
that lasted until my last surgery. Because of polio, I was, I think, 13, 14 years of age.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the last one. I had a cast from the chest up to down to the toes,
Wow.
both legs. And I spent 6 months just looking at the ceiling
Wow.
because they were fixing my hip. So in that
Wow.
way, both my knees will be level. And so yes, the one leg is shorter than the other, but then now with the brace, I can have like a compensation, and so I still have a limp, but it's not as bad as
That's
it
severe.
should be
Wow.
if I hadn't had that surgery.
You are an inspiration to thousands out there because there are people who are, unfortunately in less medical, malady than you are,
Hmm.
but are on disability. They've decided they've literally given up on life. They've given up on career, but you, in spite of what others call a life hampering disability, are pursuing your dreams. You're doing what you feel you've been called to do, teaching public health, making the lives of people better. So you are an inspiration.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Moma, and also I still keep going after my dreams. I mean,
Right.
if you noticed last week we had all this inspiration for issues. When I was a child, my first dream was to be an astronaut.
Oh.
Right? And so I remember I was watching all these, the man to the moon and the rockets and everything. And then when I saw the story of, well, a lady from Louisiana, Haley Arsenault,
Okay.
she was the medical officer on the Inspiration 4 trip. She's a
Oh,
physician assistant in St. Jude's.
I didn't know
She
that.
is a bone cancer survivor,
Wow.
and she was treated there in St. Jude's. She is now a physician assistant, helping the treatment of children with cancer.
Wow.
And she was invited to go to space, and I said, well, now I have a chance to fulfill my dream of going to space.
With
Uh,
with the Galactica and with the all the commercial.
well, now we have technology that will allow us to do as. And I was just this morning I was reading some news that our very dear William Shatner, who is 90 years of age, is going to be sent to space. And
Oh wow.
William Shatner is the actor, the Commander Kirk, Captain
Right.
Kirk of
Right.
the Enterprise.
Right. Star
So
Trek. Right.
yes,
Okay.
exactly, Star Trek. So I mean, if a guy of 90 is
Heck
going
no.
to space, if a lady that had bone cancer and she is having a whole prosthetic femur,
Wow.
well, I have a chance of going, right? Why not?
So, growing up in Colombia with a prosthetic limb, did it did it affect you psychologically? Like you couldn't play football, you couldn't. I mean, did it affect your relationship with the girls? Did you feel isolated from your peers? Because there are young people watching, and I want to know how you handle those pressures from your peers.
Well, I will have to say yes, it was difficult because, well, at that time we didn't have these ideas or these notions of accessibility.
Okay,
There was no accessibility regulations in place.
of course. Yeah.
Accessibility was difficult. I won't say that it was easy or it was a pleasant experience all the time. It was, kind of getting to understand the fact that there was nothing that you could do to change that situation,
Mm,
but that you had to do something. That you will not stay lying in a bed or in the living room of your home watching TV, watching people to live their lives from a window.
mhm.
That you had to go out and do something, and yes, of course, that was a limitation. I was so passionate about soccer that yes, I was going out and play, and I got broken bones. I remember I kept saying to my students and my patients, well, my medical chart because of polio is like this, but my medical chart because of the broken bones and everything that I had because of playing sports was like this big too.
So you persisted.
Yes, I'm very persistent, and life made me that way. And I want to appreciate the help that I got from friends and family, especially my grandmother. She
Wow.
was a source of strength for me. Um, she, I will say,
Mm.
she was instrumental.
Wow.
Um, Inspired me in going out and accomplish things.
Wow.
So yes, it was difficult. Not every people were keen to somebody with a physical limitation.
Hmm.
Still happens
Yeah.
in different ways. But hey, such is life. There's nothing
Right.
much I can do to change it, but there are ways that I can have
A blessing to
to,
people.
yes,
Right.
and I do it on one end because it's yes, I know that what I do can serve as an inspiration for others. So that
Hmm.
places a responsibility on me.
On you.
But
Wow.
also because I want to develop that ability to carry out the message and say,
Hmm.
hey, don't get despair because something is happening to you. You have the inner force that you need. And
To.
now that we have all these technologies, all these opportunities, especially in a country like the United States of
Right.
America, I mean, don't feel that you cannot. No,
Right.
you can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
That's the main message. And
Right.
and yes, I played sports. I wasn't as successful as I wish I could, but I was doing it. And after that helped also develop my personality. I would say
Hmm.
strengthen me up. And I end up being one of those, when you're playing in the neighborhood and you start having two captains and then start selecting the team.
Teams,
Well,
right.
I was among the first ones to be picked
Okay.
because I was a good goalkeeper. So
Ah.
they were picking me up because they knew it was pretty difficult to score a goal in my
Wow.
in my in my side.
In your goal.
So
Wow.
yes, and I was also a leader
Wow.
of the team, and I used to, when we were down in the score, I was one of the ones pushing
Go,
the
go,
team.
go.
Yes, and
I remember the Colombian goalkeeper, Higuita,
oh
who
yes,
got killed because he.
no, that was the center back,
Oh, the center back got killed.
Escobar.
Es- But Higuita was one who kicks the
Higuita,
ball out with
yes,
his
correct.
feet.
The Scorpion.
The
Yeah,
scorpion,
Higuita
right?
was that black,
Yeah.
curly hair, long curly hair.
I thought they
He was
attacked
the
him
goal.
too
Yes,
for
of
doing
course.
something, for letting in a goal or
Yes,
something.
because that was a goal in the and it was a score in their own goal.
Okay.
And Andres Escobar was trying to deflect that ball. That was in the World
The
Cup
World
here
Cup,
in the
yeah.
United States, '94.
Somebody was upset enough
And
to.
yes, because these were drug lords, and they were betting on the
Oh,
games, and
really?
this guy lost a lot of money. So they found Andres Escobar, on a restaurant, kind of a disco restaurant, and they had an altercation inside. And then Andres Escobar decided to leave the place, and they followed him until the parking lot, and they killed him there.
Wow.
Yes, it was very sad, and well, the levels of violence that we had to face as a nation were, I mean, pretty bad.
Unprecedented.
Yes.
Wow.
So,
Unbelievable. So you grew up with a family of three children?
well, I grew up. Initially, I was the only one,
Okay.
and then I had a brother when I was 16. So then that was a huge gap in
Of
between,
course.
and
Okay.
so and sometimes I was trying, try to be the leader, and
Mm-hmm.
try, but sometimes it was difficult because I was going to med school, so it was a
Busy.
challenge, but it was a small. I would say it was a small family, but I had a lot of friends that
Mm.
were my brothers and sisters.
Give us an idea of growing up in Colombia during the drug cartels. Do you guys call it the Contra? I don't know if they call it
No,
the
no, the Contra was in Central
Central
America,
America.
but
Okay.
for us it's the paras, the paramilitary forces.
Okay.
So what happened at that time, there was a war on drugs, and there were two powerful cartels, the Cali cartel and the Medellin cartel.
Mm.
And this is unfortunately one of the reasons why people still think that Colombians are like Pablo Escobar. which is another famous Escobar, right? Yeah, it was dangerous, um, because like I was in med school and I was very active as a as a med student, and I was proficient in languages,
Mm.
and we were having the worldwide congress on internal medicine, so we were having doctors coming from all over the world
Mm.
in Cartagena, and I was there working as an interpreter, and I will assist the audio visuals of the Congress, but also serving as an interpreter for some foreign doctors. And my first assignment was with an Italian doctor,
Mm.
and then we were going through his presentation. He was being part of the pre-Congress, right? So the next day, he was starting his presentation early in the morning. So basically, I had to go with him through his presentation, make sure that I will get it right, that I will do a faithful interpretation of what he was presenting to the audience from Italian to Spanish.
Wow.
Somebody else will do the Spanish to English part, but I was in charge of working with him directly. So what happened was after we went through that presentation, at that time it was this carousel with the slides. You remember that you had to like take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, there were pictures that you
Mm-hmm.
had a special type of film
Right.
for working the slides.
Click.
Yes, and then cut them and put it in frames and put it in a carousel so you will go clicking, doing the clicking, and they will be moving, moving, moving. Now it's pretty easy, but at that
Mm-hmm.
time it was an art to
Right.
run all that, and make sure that they will be in place, in the right
Mm-hmm.
place, in the right position, and everything. So we finished that, and so my responsibility then was to take him back to the hotel. He was in the Hilton, Cartagena Hilton, and then we had a bump there that was placed by Escobar, because they were fighting the Colombian government because they were interested in extraditing drug dealers to the United States to fight the drug cartels.
Right.
So then Escobar was trying to bump his way out of the extradition, and in the end he did.
Wow.
After setting up many bombs, I was personally close to three of them.
Wow.
One of them was that day when we were going back to the hotel, and then we were like, I don't know, like I would say less than a half mile away from the hotel when we had the explosion.
Wow.
It was in the room of one of our colleagues, a Colombian doctor. The bomb was hidden in the air conditioning unit. They had placed it there 2 days before that. They knew there will be this World Congress,
Wow.
and they were looking for attention, and they got it because for more than a decade, Colombia wasn't the place for another medical congress, another international medical congress. I would say more than 15 years, almost,
Wow.
or 15 years or so.
We're going to continue this story when Dr. Nelson comes back. And when he comes back, he's going to share the story of the Colombian drug mafia who had a face transplant to escape being convicted.
Oh yeah,
Don't miss it.
chupeta.
God bless you. We'll see you next time. God bless you.